let's go into round number 2 of this. So I was going live earlier this morning, and I feel like A, I missed a couple things, and B, the audio cut out on one of my live streams. So we're going to redo it here. And also, you're going to catch me doing some meal prep here. And this is actually one of the topics I feel like I missed. When we're talking about the topic of the day, it is going to be brain boosting activities. And we can call them hacks if you want to, but really I like to call them brain boosting foundational kind of levels. And what we're going to look at is, hold on, let me just pull up my notes here. Let's reset, okay? I want to first make sure I'm not sticking my food. There we go, okay, cool. Let's redo that. Even though you guys are watching me live, let me know in the chat if you guys can hear me okay. It sounds good. I'm gonna double check on the audio. What I'm actually gonna do is come over here with me, Amazon. I'm gonna redo this audio, make sure my Bluetooth isn't even on. I'm not even gonna risk having that be an option this time. Okay. So let's reset that. Welcome everyone. All right, let's re-go, reset. We got the LOF brain boosting kind of protocol and system here. We're gonna go over 3 tiers or 3 foundations, thinking as if we're building a pyramid that are ultimately related to boosting your brain function, or just what's related to your brain function, okay? Tier 1 is gonna be our foundation. This is the stuff that you really essentially need to have. This is what I build with all of my clients, even what I build in my own life, and what I'm gonna recommend you start with. Then we'll go to tier 2, the nice to haves, the things that are gonna stack on top of our foundational habits and approaches. And then we'll finally go to tier 3, which is the, okay, kind of nice to haves, but you can take them or leave them, honestly. And they can be impactful. We'll talk about it, but the foundational stuff is going to be the most kind of what I would say backed by peer-reviewed journals, science, and data. Tier number 2 is also, again, backed by data and science, but again, not as impactful. And 3 is I'm going to at least cite reference journals related to this, but it's, again, going to be a kind of maybe take it or leave it kind of a component to it. So as I'm mixing up, again, my food here, nutrition was one I feel like I left out in my live stream this morning and the content I was doing, so I wanted to mix and come back and do that. So we're going to go through that. I'm also going to feature and highlight some products that are related to it in all of these tiers, whether it's, again, our books, bands, but really, to me, the foundational stuff is stuff that's free and going to be most impactful. So the things you don't necessarily need to spend money on, okay? Now, originally I started with hydration. I'm gonna start with nutrition since I'm meal prepping. And what I wanna bring up when it comes to nutrition is the notion that your brain may only be about 2% of your total body weight, but it can burn anywhere from 20 to 40% of the calories you need on any given day. So you wanna make sure you're fueling it. So one of the most impactful things you can do for your brain is obviously being mindful of the nutrients that you're putting into it and the calories that you're putting into it. So we know our brain operates off of glucose and sugar, but there's also gonna be some things that we can leverage in our nutrition that will impact it even more. Not only in our total caloric intake with our macronutrients, but as well as including our hydration and even our supplementation, which I'll get into, and that's really more of the supplementations, the tier 2. But thinking about our micronutrients, we have the macronutrients, protein, fats, and carbs. We also have our micronutrients, which is our vitamins and minerals, as well as our electrolytes and all of the little smaller things that still contribute to our overall quality of life. And I'm just going to read some like foundational pieces, and also the things that I'm going to be sharing with you are also going to be referenced in our blog, and I will have citations and references. So if you're interested in where am I coming up with these numbers, what reviewed or peer-reviewed journals am I talking about, you can actually go to our blog when that's up, and you'll be able to check the references and citations. Okay, so again, 1, stable blood sugar equals stable focus and brain activity. So being able to have consistent food coming in and monitoring or maintaining a certain amount of blood sugar is going to be impactful for our cognition and brain function. Also, high protein is going to impact our neurotransmitter building blocks. So the basically foundations of our neurotransmitters are coming from amino acids. So the more protein we're getting in, the more we're actually going to have the foundational tools in those neurotransmitters, at least one of the tools to it. Also, when we think about healthy fats, DHA or EPA, that's going to help with brain structure and overall communication, the actual neurons communicating with one another. That also comes back into with hydration. If we're properly hydrated, we're going to have the essentials to be able to properly communicate. And then lastly, if your brain is burning around 400 to 600 calories a day, nutrition isn't just an option. It's your essential fuel source. So think about that. If you're a 200 pound, I'm just going to use myself, around 200 pound male, and we're burning about 400 or 600 calories just from our brain function in of itself, not including physical training and then all the other demands. And even that's going to potentially be higher depending on what your job is, depending on what you do, depending on the demands of it. We really need to pay attention to your nutrition. I was actually just in a group chat before in a group community post, and they were talking about, hey, I don't have time, this is my job, and this, that, and the other. And they're thinking about adjusting what can they do for their body composition. Well, always looking at your nutrition is going to be impactful, not just for your actual physique, but also for how you cognitively show up and perform, and then ultimately how you can actually think and operate. So that's one of level one, one of the foundational pieces to our foundation in of itself. The next thing is hydration, which goes back into our actual topic of, to me, even nutrition. I'm going to pair these together. So as little as 1% to 2% dehydration can impact your brain function and overall performance and cognition. So being able to think about, before you have caffeine, before you have coffee in the morning, before you do anything, you want to hydrate. One of the things in the habits I find, instead of removing things from our life, I talked about this in my last content piece in our last stream, was thinking about, before you want to even have caffeine or coffee in the morning, have 16 ounces of water. If you can, start with even 8 ounces. If 16 feels like too much, one of the goals I have is I add 16 ounces of water first thing in the morning in the first hour of waking up. But specifically, I'm getting that in before I'm even drinking my coffee in the morning. It's going to help in a variety of ways, but just building the routine around habit and bringing your awareness to it. All right, I'm also going to say that this ground turkey, veggie, and beans mix is done. So I'm going to turn that off and go back into with our nutrition and our hydration, the combination of the two. So again, when we're thinking about our hydration, just if you want to have a brain boost right off the bat, hydrate. Get fluids into your body before you put caffeine in, before you put anything else. So number one is food, number two is number one is nutrition and food. Number two is hydration. That really falls in the category of nutrition, right? So being able to know what you're putting into your body. And one of the simplest things I would recommend from a habit, take pictures. Take pictures of your food, take pictures of your supplements, take pictures of what you're drinking. Because then you can say, oh yeah, sometimes we'll forget, like, how much did I even drink today? I don't know. But if you take pictures of it, you're aware, like, oh, I had 16 ounces here, I had 16 ounces there, I had 8 ounces here, I had 12 ounces there. We know, okay? Then going on to our next foundational piece is going to be sleep. When we think about sleep, it's, yes, we know it's important, but to me, why I don't even put that first is sometimes it feels very foreign or not as accessible as maybe nutrition, because you're going to be eating every day no matter what, right? And that's direct point of access. We're going to be hydrating, putting something in our body to drink. Obviously, we're sleeping every day, but I notice there's a lot of resistance when I work with people, and even for my own self, my own life experience, around being able to feel like you can get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. That's the gold standard, and it's with good reason, okay? When we get less than 7 hours of sleep across the board, there's a variety of health implications. One is the association to stroke risk. Two is obviously an interesting one, by the way, so I shouldn't say obvious. It's an interesting one related to our actual appetite and related to our hormone relationship of ghrelin and leptin that makes us either more or less hungry. So when we have less sleep, our body's producing more of the neurotransmitter hormone signaling response to eat, to make up for our energy. So if you ever notice when you're running on low sleep, you're probably going to be more likely more hungry, and you're going to want more simple carbs, sugary things. That goes back to nutrition and being aware of this. This is all the things that we cover in the 28-day reset and cover in our coaching programs, because this is the foundation of it. This is really overlaps with so many different things. And when we think about sleep, what I would invite you to think about is, yes, we know 7 to 9 hours, but it's hard to just say, okay, switch, turn off, I'm going to sleep. That's not as much of an access point. What I do invite that feels like more of an access point is focusing on, what does the 3 to 5 hours leading up to bedtime look like? The 3-2-1 sleep method's a really impactful one, and we'll add this in the blog post, but basically it's looking at the 3 hours before bed, the 2 hours before bed, and the 1 hour before bed. And I've seen different versions of this. You can kind of repurpose it as you want, but 3 hours before bed, you're going to remove a particular item, then 2 hours before bed, remove another, and then 1 hour before bed, remove another. But I'm not a big fan of removing things. I'm a big fan of adding things. So my version of a 3-2-1 sleep method is 3 hours before bed, we're going to add some relaxation-based activities and swap for, instead of screen time or work stuff, we're going to add something more relaxing. So maybe we're going to add in some magnesium or some supplementation related to that. That can be a really helpful one. One of the things that I like, especially when it comes to magnesium, is I have a couple here. We're going to cross compare and then I'll tag another as well. So I have my magnesium D3 and K2 sublingual dropper, and then we also have our sleep complex with magnesium, has L-theanine and lemon balm in it. There's a variety of other mixtures and components with different brands. I'll just give you 2 of these options. The point is this, and again, that kind of pairs into, you don't necessarily even have to spend money on stuff like that. You can just do some relaxation music. You can do some relaxation. This kind of overlaps with another activity of breath work. That's actually one of our other categories. Using your breath with things like, even I have this Amazfit watch, which is a great tool and actually has a particular setting on here. Allows me to pull up breathing, and it allows me to focus on relax. And for 1 minute, it'll walk me through breathing exercises. So I'm going to get into that when I cover breath work a little bit more. But for sleep, the key thing we want to think about is we can't out-supplement our poor sleep. Meaning you can't outtake with supplementation or medication things that are going to overlap for poor sleep. Just like you can't out-train a poor diet or poor nutrition, you can't out-supplement or out-medicate poor sleep habits. That's just like a foundational piece. So you can use medication and supplementation, but again, that's like tier 2, maybe tier 3. Tier 1 is addressing your sleep. That's like one of the foundational things. It'll take longer, but it's a stronger ROI. And then when your brain is sleeping, that's when it's detoxifying, that's where it's consolidating memories. That's also when you're going to be repairing. So if you're not sleeping adequately, you're building up waste products that your body's not actually flushing out throughout the nighttime when it's supposed to be sleeping, whenever your sleep cycles are. You're also not going to be repairing your muscle tissue too. So physical damage. This goes back to even exercise too. Exercise is another layer that we'll get into after this, which is a foundation for cognition too. Let's sleep. So try and get 7 to 9 hours of sleep, but more importantly, focus on the 3, 2, and 1 hours before bed and add relaxation checkpoints along the way. So 3 hours before bed, I'm going to add in maybe some structure and routine where I, instead of going to screens or instead of doing that, I'm going to add reading. Then 2 hours before bed, okay, I'm going to add in my hygiene routine where I'm going to brush my teeth, floss, rinse, whatever, shower, whatever fits in there that's also relaxing. And then an hour before bed, I'm going to add in again something still relaxing and not taxing. And maybe it's again breath work. Maybe it's some physical connection or intimacy with your partner. Maybe it's just you being able to just reflect and check in with your own self, but adding in that checkpoint along the way. And again, we're not using screens. We're not using high intense active things. We're not using exercise. Those things don't necessarily add beneficial stimuli to the mix. For me, I know one of the things that I'm actually going to do at the end of the stream, so if you guys want to stick around for that, I'm going to be doing my journaling routine. I just finished my last 100-day journal, or 12-week journal, I should say. I'm going into my next 12 weeks, so I'm going to recap what worked, what didn't. I'm also going to do my daily stoic journal. I do an AM and a PM reflection. So this is another one I add to the mix. These are, again, foundational things. This is kind of mixing, again, tier 2 stuff with tier 1, where you don't have to buy these things. You can do your own journals. You can do your own stuff where you don't have to buy these particular ones. But that's what just kind of is impactful for me. So we have, again, food and nutrition, we have hydration, we have sleep. Now we're going to go on to exercise. Again, these are our foundational pieces. This is like at the base of the pyramid of what you want to be focusing on. When we think about exercise, it's not only releasing something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which can be released up to 300% with exercise, which is going to improve also mood through our serotonin. It's also going to improve focus with not only BDNF, but with dopamine as well as motivation and overall learning capacity and creativity. So exercise is going to boost BDNF, which helps connect neurons together and keep those connections. It's going to increase dopamine, which is our reward mechanism, motivating as well. It's going to increase serotonin and mood regulation related to that. And again, exercise is a baseline foundational buy-in. It's really the original nootropic. Nootropic has been like a cool supplement or medicine or biohack or this. Exercise is like the baseline. So if you're like spending money on anything before exercise, you're not really properly, in my opinion, investing your money and your resources, but also your time and your bandwidth. So, and that's where even our bands come into play. You can go with body weight stuff. I did this on the live stream this morning. Like at the end of the day, like I will do some squats. I just do 2 minutes, even when you first wake up. And if you're feeling unmotivated or things like that, do this 2-minute little hack. Ready? You're gonna do 10 squats. You're gonna do 10 push-ups, whether from your knees or from your toes. And then you're gonna do 10 dead bugs. Okay, and then that's going to take maybe a minute to a minute and a half. Rotate that for a second cycle if you have the time. Boom, that's 2 to 3 minutes. That alone is already going to start to change your brain chemistry a little bit. The cool thing about exercise as well is, especially with cardiovascular exercise, the more cardiovascular exercise we do, it's not a perfectly linear, but it's a quite linear correlation between cardiovascular exercise and BDNF release. So the more you do cardiovascular exercise, the more BDNF release you're going to get, the more it's going to impact your brain chemistry and your memory. So what I would do, even back when I was in college, I would do my martial arts training and then I would study after. And if I didn't have hard practices or really intense training sessions, I would do jump rope, I would run, and then I would weight train and mix those things in, and then I would study and I would go back and forth. And then even after training and practice, I would also combine my homework with, hey, I do 20, 30, 45 minutes of homework. And then I would also tag back in with some body weight movements or some different shadow boxing drills. And that's why I love martial arts, because that type of exercise, I'm obviously biased to the martial arts kind of component of it, but being able to have the martial arts piece hits not only the physical component where you can get resistance training, you can get high intensity interval training, get cardiovascular training, you also get the cognitive stimuli with reaction, balance, coordination, being able to respond, react, move. You connect all these pieces. It's one of the best ways, honestly. Any kind of sports in general is a really strong way to get exercise in, but martial arts is, I'm biased obviously as a retired professional fighter and as a coach in this arena as well as other arenas to that, but I would highly recommend getting involved with martial arts, whether it's going to classes, whether it's just picking stuff up online, whether it's getting some equipment, whatever that looks like. But you can even simply just like shadow boxing, just moving around, working on your balance, doing things like this while you're even like heating up your food and stuff like that. Like it just takes a couple minutes. So that's the exercise piece. And then again, when we combine exercise with good quality sleep, you're going to recover faster. You're going to have a better mood. It's going to help you later in the day when you do want to sleep, because you're going to have that balance of all your neurotransmitters and your brain chemistry. So you don't feel like, man, it's 2 a.m. Why am I wired right now? It's because you didn't actually challenge your bandwidth and your energy and your battery in the earlier stages of the day, and at least not to the way you potentially could in an optimal capacity. So that's another aspect. And then after that, so that's our kind of fourth foundational piece. For our fifth one, we have breath work and breathing in general. So I have 2 favorites that I'm going to cover, but really breathing is an instant stress reduction. It's like within 30 seconds to 2 minutes, you can have an immediate impact. Okay. Plus you're going to have better oxygen utilization as well as CO2 regulation. And you're going to have an overall just calmer nervous system and overall cognition, which may sound counterintuitive, right? But what we want, when I say calmness with our brain chemistry, we can be clearer, direct, and focused. So instead of bouncing all over the place, you can feel energized, but it feels chaotic. That may not be what we want. We can use our breath to be a little bit more focused, right? Misha knows this. My dog Misha's just rolling up. Come here, Misha. Yeah, you know. Like even this will go back into after breath work. We're going to talk about physical touch and social connection. Having a dog can be a great way to get physical touch in. This is another great brain booster, and we'll talk about the components there. Misha's pumped. Improves neurotransmitters from serotonin, especially our mood regulator, as dopamine as well, and also oxytocin, which is our, don't be that pumped, it's our bonding neurotransmitter. So when you have a baby, when you have children, when you fall in love, your body's flooding your system with oxytocin. What makes you feel bonded, even after physical intimacy too. That's what's happening. It's also going to impact mood, focus, and our overall emotional regulation. So we have, going back to breath work, the 2 things I personally always recommend people start with is what's called 4-7-8 breathing. So we're going to breathe in for 4. Hold for 7. Then we're going to exhale for 8. That's one cycle. You can go through that cycle as many times as you need to, anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 minutes. You can do it longer. You can do whole meditative practices and states. They're really, really impactful. One thing I've seen extremely impactful that doesn't cost $1 is breathing and focusing on your breathing and doing meditation. I've been meditating daily now for almost a year, and I can tell you with confidence the impact it has. And honestly, it takes, from my experience, quite a bit of time. It's not like a sudden overnight shift and change. It's like this progressive daily deposit that eventually you kind of recognize it, from my experience at least. But it's really cool because you can actually see studies, fMRIs, PET scans, and different types of actual data looking at the change in a person's brain chemistry when they're using breath work and meditation. And again, it'll enhance our ability to focus, have cognition, be able to connect, and these are all just massive things. So again, to kind of recap us where we're at right now in our level 1 foundation, we have nutrition and hydration, as well as food. So that's really 1 and 2. That's going to bring us to number 3, which is going to be sleep, which is, I would really put almost 1, but it just sometimes doesn't feel as accessible. Then we have 4, exercise. And these aren't necessarily ranked in any particular order. They're just where we're going through them. Number 5, we have breath work. And then number 6 is, again, I was talking about like with Misha the dog, physical connection and social connection. So we're having physical touch and social connection. So this is going to be impactful for a variety of things. So again, it improves our neurotransmitters. It improves, again, oxytocin, like I was talking about, dopamine, our connection, our memory, and overall just quality of life. So if, let's say, you don't have a partner, right? You can have a dog or a pet, a cat, whatever. If you don't feel like you have access, like let's say you just move somewhere and you're like, hey, I don't have an actual physical friend group to go in. Go out and explore. That's, again, I go back to martial arts. That's why I'm super grateful for my martial arts community, because that's another tribe, a community I feel like I get to be a part of, whether it's Rogue Combat Club, whether it's Redemption, MMA, and fitness. It's being able to have these places to go and have a community, have structure, have support, and have connection. And then being able to, if you can, again, have that, even if you have anxiety or you're unable to do that. That's the cool thing with technology now. The one thing I'll give props to technology is our ability to reach more people. We can connect with more people, and we can start to get a higher access point in a variety of ways we normally wouldn't have prior. So leveraging technology, even doing FaceTime, phone calls, text, just reach out, connect, express gratitude, connect with the people you care about. It has an impact. It will boost your brain. Now, the difference is, don't just go on social media to watch TikTok videos, Instagram videos, whatever, just for the sake of doom scrolling. But if you get connection, even from here, like comment, like I want to interact with you guys. That's what we want to drive. Why I like going live, and why we even put up the replays. We have community, and why I leave the comments on, because we want to interact and build a community. That's the whole point of this. And being able to have that connection makes us human, and that really enhances our brain chemistry. And then we have number 7, last, that's going to round out our kind of, again, foundational pieces, is going to be brain games and cognitive training. So when I think about brain games, you can think about chess, you can do checkers. We can, like, I'll show you guys something actually really cool that I have over here. Things like this, something like foldology. This is like origami almost. So you look at a picture and you have to figure out, hey, how do I have to fold this to make this image? Things like that. Again, different aspects can be impactful, but you can even go back to just journaling, like I was mentioning before. Just journal, talk, like creatively express. Being able to go through that can enhance your brain chemistry. Also doing games, whether it's Sudoku, you can do chess, whatever the game is, you're familiar. And then there's ones, I'll tag some others in here maybe you haven't heard of, and some different products I've done videos and reviews on. Even honestly, like when I was talking back to college, martial arts is another cognitive training one. So you're combining the physical. That's what I think is so powerful about like martial arts. It combines and overlaps so many things. So you're going to get a cognitive training boost. You're going to get physical exercise. You're also going to get social connection and physical touch. Even though the physical touch might be like you like sparring with someone or you grappling with someone, your brain doesn't know the difference. It's getting the same oxytocin. It's getting the same dopamine. It's getting the same serotonin. It's getting the same signals. So it hits so many marks. So that's why I think like of martial arts, of the 7 things, it hits 3 right off the bat. I think that's a huge return on investment. So martial arts and training in general, I think is like massive. So I'm a big believer in it. But even if, let's say you don't want to do that, you can go chess, you can go gaming, whatever like gaming device, computer gaming, Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, whatever it is, those things work. The trick that I would say with that, you will get dopamine, you can get BDNF, you can get these things. There is a ceiling where if you keep playing, you're not going to get a return on investment anymore. From what I've seen on the data, it's about 45 minutes. So we're an hour maybe. And really be disciplined and be honest with yourself. Hey, am I going to be able to be disciplined with this activity? If not, you may want to look to a different type of brain game or cognitive training, like crossword puzzles, whatever it is, but being mindful of where you're going to be able to draw the line there. So using your brain is like, again, just like the exercise piece with our muscles, you can train, develop it, and strengthen it. But also at the same time, it needs rest. I go back to sleep. And also this point I have highlighted for me to mention is reps matter. Now what I mean by that too, and this is what I want to highlight for almost all habits in general, this is a really important one that kind of blows my mind, is it was found to be more impactful for behavior change and habit creation to have more frequent touch points, even if there were 2 minutes throughout the day and the week, than having longer sessions. So I'll give you an example. 2 minutes per day for 5 days, so that's 10 minutes per week, but it's 2 minutes frequently done for 5 days throughout the week, so that's 5 touch points, versus having 1 2-hour session for the week. The actual shift in behavior and brain chemistry and frequency was found with the 10 minutes per week, but broken up 5 points throughout the week, versus 1 time for the week, but it was 2 hours, which to me is like kind of backwards, because if you think of like outliers or mastery of skills, you want to have 10,000 hours, right? But it's how you got those hours also counts in rewiring your brain and your brain cognition and function. So I just want to highlight that point again. Being able to have frequent touch points. That's why I go back to 2-minute daily deposits. These are things I've talked about in past podcasts and past topics and past blogs. I'll keep bringing them up because, again, I go back to even like our nutrition reset, our books, our coaching programs, our foundations. Everything we do goes back to these foundation principles. That's why like I can call the topics different things, but you're going to hear me say a lot of the same stuff because it's related to pretty much all of our health and quality of life. So again, I'm going to recap. This is tier 1, our foundation of the pyramid, the most important stuff. If you're not doing all this stuff, there's no reason for you to spend money on tier 2 or tier 3. It, in my opinion, comes in this order. But now these particular things are no particular order with tier 1. So we have nutrition. Okay, food, what you're putting into your body matters. Number 2, hydration, very much matters. Number 3, sleep, being able to obviously focus on the controllables there. Number 4, going back to exercise. I keep coming back to that and the overlaps to that. Number 5, we have breath work. 6, having physical touch and social connection. And 7, brain games and cognitive training. And again, finding things that can overlap and touch multiple points of this. To me, martial arts is where it hits 3, if not 4 of these checkpoints. Because even in certain martial arts, you learn how to breathe. You learn breath work with that too. So really you can get 4 of the 7 in one go. Now let's move on to tier 2, which is our, what I can categorize as natural supports that are relatively low cost and also still science backed. Okay. And this is where I'm going to kind of walk on and off and pull some different things here. The first thing we're going to talk about is I'm going to highlight mushroom gummies, or really any kind of what I would categorize as, whether it's a multivitamin, a natural occurring gummy or powder that you'll get from nature. So we have this one by Sky Nutrition, for example. Let's just read off. Look at all these, the mushroom complex it has. Lion's mane, reishi, cordyceps, chaga, turkey tail, maitake, shiitake, white button, black fungus, royal sun, needle, oyster. I'll be honest with you, 3 of those I don't even are super familiar with the value to them, but at least 5 of those I am, like lion's mane, reishi, cordyceps, chaga, turkey tail. Like these, the point is they not only hit the micronutrients, but there's other components and nutrients and cognitive benefits that you'll get. And that's why you'll see like different types of coffee being made from mushrooms, supplementation powders. I like the gummies because I feel like from a taste perspective, it's way easier. I took them this morning. The other thing I'll talk about is if you don't want to go to the mushrooms, you're like, I don't really know. A good multivitamin. And then I also put in the category of multivitamins, a good greens product can do the same thing, in my opinion, just like a multivitamin or the mushrooms. A similar that I recently got sent to me was moringa, which I hadn't heard of prior, to be honest with you. And moringa is kind of like Mother Nature's multivitamin is the like kind of category that I thought was very clever, but it's legit. It's like, okay, this is actually back. The key thing for all of these is you want to have, because the supplement industry isn't regulated by the FDA, you don't have to go through FDA regulations to go to market. You can literally, I can slap whatever I want in a capsule, put it in a box or in a bottle and just sell it to you guys. Eventually, if it gets flagged and people are failing drug tests or they're checking into it, they can get investigated. There will be third-party things that can come into play, but they're not starting that way. You don't have to. So what I'm saying this for is the brands even I look for, I check 2 things. 1, do they have third-party verification testing or sites that they're doing their stuff in that's being made sure that what's being claimed in there is in there. 2, I go on websites, and I won't share them here, but you can look at there's a couple of them that are just nonprofit, independently funded, that you can look up if there's any legal ramifications, claims, or things where there's false claims being made, you'll be able to find it. A good one actually I will share is quackwatch.org. It's one that I actually got back in college when I was going to Stony Brook as both an athlete as well as an athletic trainer. When I was in the athletic training program, I ended up like switching, believe it or not. Probably not that surprising for those of you that know that I have ADHD and have ADHD or know anything about it. We change things around quite a bit. But the point is, that was a resource even they recommended for D1 athletes into a D1 school and what they were coaching. And to this day, it still exists. It's a nonprofit organization, so they have no financial interest, and they're getting backed by things that don't necessarily sway the perspective of what's being listed on there. So this recaps of, again, from a tier 2, but like baseline, again, natural support that's backed by science, and we have a lot of data on what in human trials is either a multivitamin or a greens or plant-based, what I would categorize as multivitamin. So again, we have the mushroom gummies. I have a regular multivitamin. We also have like fruits and vegetables, either powders or capsules or gummies that you can take. They all are going to hit, again, multiple micronutrients across the board, and those nutrients are going to help impact your cognition and your brain function, whether it's going from, again, your memory, your mood, the neurotransmitter replenishment, oxygen utilization, even stress management. The next category that we're going to go into, the next kind of topic of that is probiotics. So I'm going to show you guys a couple that I like. So I have two here. We have the capsules and we have gummies. Not gummies, powder. So this, I really like, honestly, I'm biased to the BioOptimizers brand. They're not even paying me for this. I've worked with them in the past. They have been a sponsor in the past. Also, ZenWise, their digestive enzymes, both of these have been sponsors in the past. They're not paying for this. This isn't a sponsored thing. I just like them and I actively use them, so I like sharing that with you guys. But the point is, whether it's a capsule or a powder, the powder is going to be more absorbable and bioavailable from my experience and understanding versus capsules. It's not the end of the world, but if you really want to go for that reason, what I invite at the end of the day is what's actually going to be accessible for you. What are you going to be able to continue and sustain? If it's a powder, great. If it's a pill, great. If it's a gummy, great. Do what works for you. But at the end of the day, when it comes to a probiotic, you want to be able to find one that you're going to stick to, and also checking for a couple things. Does it have prebiotic, probiotic, postbiotic combination? And is it being delivered and getting to the part of your intestines, your gut that you want it to? Okay. A lot of times our stomach's going to have the acid in it that's going to break this stuff down. It doesn't have the proper either capsulation to it or the proper combination. That's where the downside, I will say, to powders is depending on, again, what you're taking it for. If it's a pre, post, or a regular probiotic, it may not actually make it to your intestines. So that's where the capsules can be helpful. I find it from an absorption standpoint, if you take it with food or you take it with particular things, it can be helpful for the powder itself. But if you want to just take the capsules and you want to take it on an empty stomach or take it separate of things, that might be the move as well. So it's just kind of figuring out what makes sense for you. I can even do a deep dive on like just that in and of itself. So if you guys want to hear about that, let me know. I will gladly dive into that. The next thing that we have is also our omega-3s. I'm just pulling up, where do I have my omega-3? Here we go. Got my omega-3s right over here. So again, from an omega-3 standpoint, I have the capsules. There's also gummies that you can take. ZenWise has a really good gummies one that I personally like that doesn't have like a fishy taste. It actually has like a little citrusy orange taste. The one I have right here is the plant-based one by So Active or Triquarta. The omega-3, so if you're like vegan, vegetarian, you don't want to deal with like fish oil, krill oil, things like that, this can be your move. What we're looking for, again, from an omega-3 standpoint, is the ratio of DHA and EPA and just the quality sourcing of it. And why this becomes important is it's impactful for brain cell membrane integrity, as well as our learning and memory for our cognition and performance, and then also ultimately reducing inflammation. The other cool thing I'll highlight, I was talking about my D3K2 and my magnesium all in one. There's an interesting study that found, I believe it was PubMed, and I can reference this and cite it in our blog, when they took two groups of people, school kids, like young school kids, and prisoners. And the two things they both struggled with was their attention and their listening and attentiveness to the rule set. But when they took the D3 and the omega-3, or D3 and K2 with the omega-3s, they saw in both groups their attention span went up and their behavior and adherence to the rules also went up. So they're able to be better listeners and more attentive. So again, going back to brain function and cognition and also mood regulation, which I think is fascinating. The other cool thing to know about vitamin D is it's what's called fat soluble. Vitamin D, A, K, and E are all fat soluble. That means it has to be taken with fat in order to be uptake, utilized, and properly managed with your body. So taking it with an omega-3 just provides the fat right there, which is another cool aspect to it, which is why I recommend those two going together. And also timing can be impactful here, but these are the ones, it doesn't have to be morning or night. I like to do this in my morning routine, and then in the evening I'll have magnesium as like another backup for that. So that's again the omega-3. Now let's go into number 5 of all these categories, which could be number 1 just based on the studies, is creatine. Creatine and caffeine are the 2 most backed supplements. And when I say backed supplements, what I mean is backed by studies, peer-reviewed, credible journals. So I have my creatine powder. I've also done a lot of videos on gummies. I've talked about gummies before. To me, when it comes to either of these, creatine is going to be impactful on ATP, which is great for our muscles and our energy as far as training goes, but also impactful for our brain. So being able to replenish that for memory, for processing, for resiliency, for stress adaptation, for even when we are sleep deprived, is going back, hey, if you are missing out on sleep, again, this doesn't mean, hey, make a behavior pattern of missing out on sleep. But if you do happen to acutely miss out on sleep, like for example, I have an 8-month-old. My fiance actually literally, while I was doing this live stream, had to go in the bedroom because she woke up. Now, she's great like that. And no matter who you are, you're eventually going to have to tag in and you're going to have to deal with sleepless nights when you have a newborn. So for those nights, not saying to make a habit out of it, but you can add creatine to the mix. And I've had some great insight from Dr. Tony Ricci, personal friend and colleague of mine, that I would recommend you guys check out. Also, Dr. Rhonda Patrick, not someone that I know, but I just like their content, their information. They've both talked about, and this has been seen in studies over the last 5 to 10 years, of increasing creatine dosages to anywhere from 5 grams, which is what's our normal considered for like muscular benefit, to now 10 to 20 grams for the cognitive component, as well as for sleep deprivation. So also, I think about this going back to martial arts and for my fighters, if you have like head trauma or anything related to that, again, this isn't medical advice, but something I think about is I take creatine every single day. I take that with my multivitamin. This is like my baseline buy. And again, that's why it's like a tier 2 for me, because it's the most backed by data along with caffeine. And caffeine is also the next one I would bring up, whether you want to get it from coffee or if you want to take it from a pre-workout, or if you want to take it from another supplement source. To me, I'll be honest with you guys, I like it from coffee. Like, this is my coffee. I do a half calf, so like taking a little bit less of the amount of caffeine in, because I'll do like a whole 16-ounce kind of French press brew, and I just enjoy the whole routine of it. If you guys see my morning content, you know that already. One of the other things that I will just say is like being able to have the proper tools to go with it. Like, this is one I just want to like shout out. You can have a flask, whatever, but this goes back to the hydration component too. Being able to have the proper tools to hydrate and carry these liquids around with you. But you might be saying, well, Mike, you talk about hydration. I've heard caffeine and coffee is a diuretic. It's going to dehydrate me. But if you actually look at, from what I understand of the studies and what I've seen from them, the rate at which it's dehydrating you versus the hydration component, it's negligible. Meaning it doesn't really dehydrate you. There is a diuretic component to it, but it's not actually dehydrating you faster than the fluid you're taking in is actually hydrating you. So it's more or less a wash. The bigger issue is if it's an appetite suppressant, it's negatively impacting your nutrition or your hydration cues, that's where it can be an issue. But caffeine, I like it from coffee. You can take it from your pre-workouts, from supplements, whatever you want. But caffeine's the other one that goes with creatine, the most backed by science across the board. No questions asked. And then lastly, rhodiola. This is an interesting one. It's an adaptogen that's going to impact our, again, fatigue, and can be connected to improving our performance under stress. It's a naturally occurring one. I have a couple of supplements. I'm just grabbing. Like, this is an ironic one. This is one I haven't talked about before. It's called nicotine detox. I'll be super honest with you guys. At different points in my self-care life, post-fighting career, I would mix nicotine with some other types of herbal ingredients that you could consume combustibly or whatever. So, but this was impactful. Yes, I found it helpful for that, but it has rhodiola in it, which is a helpful kind of stimulant, natural stimulant, if you want to call it that. That again has some studies supporting the benefit on our cognition. So it's not something you want to take at night. It's not something I would take like tonight, for example, but it's something that's impactful. And I have a couple other mixtures that I have that have, let's say, ashwagandha in it as well that can be really impactful too. But being able to have rhodiola can be, again, another, I would round out the tier 2. But again, when I talk about these, all of these things, it sounds, oh, that sounds really exciting and sexy, taking a pill and a powder and I'll get these benefits. Again, this is all assuming you are taking care of foundation 1, tier 1. You're getting sleep, you're getting good nutrition, you're hydrating, you're moving your body, you're breathing, you're getting physical connection and touch and social connection. You're also cognitively stimulating your brain with different types of games. You're doing these pieces. If you're not doing those things, I would not invest money on all this other stuff yet. Take care of those things first. Then start to invest your money in like creatine and multivitamins, in magnesium. And like I have my magnesium spray and oil. These are great things you can add into a self-care routine. That's another thing. And going back to sleep in the evening time, you can add in a magnesium spray and rub your body down. Like that's actually something I'll do right now. Legit. Like, cause there's something like even with your partner, like something Carrie and I like to do on date nights is we'll do a little magnesium spray, or even with the kids. Like I found, obviously you have to be mindful of the dosages. I know that like Carrie used too much of this and she actually got a headache because we want to be, it is still an electrolyte and our skin is an organ and it is absorbing this. So you want to be mindful of how much you're using. It says use like 3 to 5, I think, sprays, or 5 to 10. Let's look. I went pretty hard. I did like 10, 5 to 10 sprays. And she's tiny. Like I can do 20 or so sprays and I'm fine. But I think I did like a solid 20 even on her. And she was like, yeah, I'm not as hydrated. It goes back to dehydration. If you have a headache, that's a good sign you're probably dehydrated. So again, different things like this. Don't even go into this tier 2 stuff until you have your foundational stuff taken care of. And that's going to round out tier 2. Now let's go to tier 3. This is the, again, these are very precise tools. These are the advanced nootropics. These are the things you can spend your money on. But again, take care of the other things first. Actually, before I go into that, there is one that I missed in the, that I would categorize as tier 2, which is your B vitamins. Like this, I specifically have a B12. I still put this in a tier 2. You could maybe even put it in a tier 3, but really I think it adds enough benefit. It's a low cost, it's backed enough by science. Like this is a B12 complex, but you can do, yeah, it's just purely B12, but B6, B12, B3, all great things to have as a B complex. And that's where I think the multivitamin comes into play, why it's helpful as well. But I just want to throw that in there before I go into tier 3 and this mix. So again, tier 3, this is the top of the pyramid. This is like, okay, you can invest in stuff like this and it's not necessarily going to be a waste of money, but it's like, dude, you don't really need any of this stuff. Okay, even tier 2, you don't necessarily need it. These are nice to haves. Tier 2 is like impactful, but really tier 1 is the need to haves. Like sleep, nutrition, hydration, movement, connection, being able to have breath work, being able to have cognitive stimuli and training. These are the things that you need to have. Those are the things you got to be able to look at. Tier 2, again, we covered it. Tier 3. So what actually this, I'm going to be honest with you guys, this is what triggered this entire talking point. Because this brand, Lunakai, sent me methylene blue. And I was like, dude, what is, I've not heard methylene blue for a supplement before. So I'm like, why did they send me this? What's the deal with this? I'm familiar with it for different reasons, right? For like in a surgery perspective, you use it, or in a medical procedure perspective, you use it as a dye, right? And then I have seen legitimately like what came up, I was looking into it was, oh, people and influencers and content creators are doing it for pranking. Because if you, yeah, you guys, it's been too late in the day. This morning, if you watched my content, I literally took it, it's dye. It's like my hands were colored blue, my teeth were colored blue, my tongue was colored blue. You could totally prank people with it. But there is apparently some off-label utilization aspects of it for cognitive performance. Whether it's, again, being able to have an impact on mitochondrial ATP, improving memory, attention. These are the claims, by the way. Boosting brain oxygen efficiency, antioxidant components and benefits. Here's what I would say. I'm going to be honest with you guys. The impact of the dye itself is not, to me, worth doing it. It's going to like, you're going to have to add 20 to 30 minutes just like brushing your teeth, washing your hands, doing it over and over and over again. If you're really that into biohacking, maybe you can play with it. If it's really that impactful, cool, go for it. But I think there's better, like, here's what I'd say. You could do it, honestly, but make sure you're crushing tier 1, crushing tier 2, and you can add this in. Let me know what you think. If you want to prank your friends, that's also another great thing to do. Like, oh man, I got this new biohacking, and you will like, I have felt a cognitive benefit. I took it early this morning. I can tell you, I can feel it. But I don't think it's worth, like, I think I also feel it because I properly slept. I ate well, I'm hydrating, I'm like doing all these things. I do those things for most days, but I did do this differently tonight. I did feel a little bit of a difference in the cognition. But I will also say, I think, especially because there's FDA approved and regulated versions of this, this is a non-FDA, like, so let me just read to you what it actually says right here on the label. And again, I think this is actually a good brand. USP grade. Oh, so this actually is. Okay. Well, never mind then. Yeah, lab tested. So this is another, so again, lab tested, USP grade. I could have sworn it said this was not reviewed by the FDA. I guess that was another brand I was looking at. Regardless, this is actually like quality graded stuff. So that's the stuff you do want to look for when you're getting this, because you can have a toxicity level. You can take too much. Even with any vitamin mineral like creatine, you can even take too much. And that's why taking 20 grams of creatine, while it can be good for your brain, you might get diarrhea from it. So you want to like break it up into taking maybe 5 to 10 grams in the morning and then 5 to 10 grams in the evening. As an example is what I heard Dr. Tony Ricci talk about, or Dr. Rhonda Patrick talk about. And same thing goes with like anything supplement you're going to take. Be mindful, talk to your doctor, talk to a professional. That's why we even have a medical director, that when you work with our coaching, now you get hooked up with our medical director. Now that we even can take your insurance too, that's like a whole nother layer to it as a side note. But especially with methylene blue, this can impact your medication. So be mindful when you take supplements and stuff. If you're taking medication, these things might have what's called a contraindication. It might negatively impact what you're doing, what the medication is doing for you as well. So you want to be aware of those things and think about that. Anyways, that's like what kind of inspired this whole thing. So now let's go on to, I was talking about before, I had magnesium as like a sleep time, nerve relaxer, muscle kind of relaxation, mind relaxation. L-theanine was another ingredient. This is where we could put into, again, the tier 3. L-theanine is like, again, it's a nice to have, but not a need to. It can, again, smooth out maybe caffeine intake you've had earlier in the day. It can help relax you, calm your system, take some of the jitters out. But I really don't think it's a necessity, as it were. Again, really, you can take that if you have money to spend and you want to. It can be a nice add-on, but make sure you're, again, crushing those first 2 tiers. Another one is alpha GPC. So it's going to support our acetylcholine dynamics as well as impacting memory and learning. But again, I haven't seen enough research on that or excitement or even support in my own system to speak very strongly to it. And then some other nootropics that I would like kind of add into this mix. Now, this one I might catch some heat on, but like NAD is also like becoming a little more popular. I'll show you guys this one. So I have NAD for longevity and quality of life, but also for a nootropic potential benefit. The other one is like, I really like Onnit. Very confident. Like I've spent money on Onnit products. I've also had like an affiliate deal with them. I don't currently have one. I've done their total human optimization packs. I really like those. It covers all this stuff pretty much. So that's like a really good one. I'll probably have to tag. But what I will say is like Alpha Brain, again, Joe Rogan's talked about this and the people behind it. They've spent their own money. They've done peer-reviewed testing, so you know it works. But I still put it in the tier 3. It's not a tier 2. It's not going to be, it's obviously not going to beat any of the foundational habits, but I don't even see it beating out like creatine, for example, or caffeine. Creatine, you take creatine and caffeine together, you're going to probably beat out all the other nootropics anyway in this tier 3. But if you're doing all those other things, you're getting your multivitamin in, you get your omega-3, you've got your vitamin D, you've got your other nutrients in balance, you've got all your other foundationals in tier 1. Yeah, you can add in Alpha Brain, for example, and other nootropic components, and other like even additional mushrooms. So when I take like even these mushrooms, this can put technically in a tier 3 if you're not taking it from a overall gut and nutrient kind of component to it. So that one's an interesting one, but I put it in tier 2 because I think there's other benefits to it. When you take Alpha Brain, for example, there's one pure benefit if you're taking it as a nootropic. When you're taking like a mushroom gummy, for example, to me, that's like a multivitamin, a potential probiotic, and mixtures of all these things in one. So it's a more foundational tier 2. So with that being said, those are all the things that I kind of had. I want to circle back. I'm going to check to see if I have any questions. Okay, what's going on? And just wanted to see if there's anything else that was coming up from this, but it looks like we pretty much got it. I wanted to round this out because what's the other thing? This is something I do, by the way, guys. At 8 o'clock every evening, that's when I turn off my screen time, my work time, no matter what's going on. Even if I'm in the middle of live stream, I'm going to cut it off, and I'm going to add some self-care time. So that's my habit, and I hold myself to it. So you guys are going to see this every time. If you ever see me live past 8 o'clock, I want you to call me out on this or know that, like, I'm in another time zone, or I'm in another country, or something else is going on. But if it's past 8 o'clock where I am locally, I got a scratch. There's something going on, and I've deviated from a plan. But to recap all of this, and what I wanted to kind of just bring it home with is supplements work, and these nootropics can work, but only if you have the foundation in place. All these other pieces will work. They will be supported by studies and science and all that, but it's also assuming you're working. You're moving your body with exercise. You are sleeping. You are getting adequate hydration and nutrition, which I'm about to do, not only by hydrating, but getting in some food after this. You're getting in breath work. You're getting in social time. You're getting in the cognitive stimuli. You got to do those foundational pieces. Start with that. If you start with that, then start to invest in all these other pieces. And then we can continuously build from there. But that's like, again, my brain boosting kind of formula and breakdown and overall our blueprint, basically, that we do here at LOF. If you want more, we can cover it in coaching. We got our books. We even break this down in our 28-day reset. We got a bunch of resources around that. Right now, we have our 14-day kind of program that you can get absolutely free. You can go on to wherever you're watching this. There's going to be some resources around this, whether in the description, around it on our profile. There'll be ways to access it. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm going to wrap it up from there. I just want to, again, thank you to everybody. Also give a shout out. We got our LOF apparel lines out now. You can check that out. We're now taking also health insurance. We have Blue Cross Blue Shield. We're out of network, a provider, and United Healthcare, we're an in-network provider for. We're working on Aetna right now, working on Cigna, working on Medicaid, Medicare, all those pieces. So that'll be coming soon. If you're interested, again, reach out to us wherever you're consuming this. We got you. I'm excited, myself and my team. I'll be back. I'm going to be, again, live streaming at least 2 to 3 times per week now. So probably be back tomorrow and on Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, we'll see. But Sunday, Monday, Tuesday is kind of my goal. And then Friday or Saturday, depending on if I have my kids or not. And that is it, y'all. So cheers, everyone. I'm going to go fuel up. I appreciate you guys, and I will see y'all tomorrow. Peace. Well, it's not it.